It's such an honor to be here at Barnes & Noble the day after, well, they just reopened, to be the first talk after the superstorm. Democracy Now! Too had gone black. Democracy Now! Was without power this week, but we did have the power to broadcast all over the country, and with this remarkably trusty team on the ground, you got reports from throughout the area about what actually was happening on the ground. How many of you listened to or watched Democracy Now! Hi, welcome everyone. How many of you listen on WBAI in the morning? 99.5 FM, every morning, 8 to 9. And by the way, you got palm cards, and I hope you grab gobs of them and give them out in your workplaces, at school, wherever you go, at laundromats, coffee shops. They're my favorite, of course, because I am a coffee drinker. Give them out to spread the word. How many of you watch on CUNY television at night, 6:30 and 1? How many of you watch on Manhattan Neighborhood Network in the morning, channel 34 at 8 live and at 7 o'clock in the evening? How many of you watch or listen or read online at democracynow.org? So maybe I'll start by talking about what Democracy Now! Is. It's the fastest growing public media collaboration in the country. We began 16 years ago as the only daily election show in public broadcasting, an election year like this one. And we thought we'd go for about 7-9 months. The election would happen, we'd go on to another project. But there was more interest after the elections than before. I think because, well, when I got the call from Pacifica to be the host of the show, I was actually in Haiti. And they said, do you want to host an election show? I said, this is very interesting. Here I am in Haiti, where people get gunned down when they go to the polls. It covered the coups against Aristide, the terrible horror there. And yet most people did go out and vote. And yet in this country, where we face nothing like that adversity, I mean, voter suppression is serious adversity, but it's not the same as being gunned down at the polls. Yes, your vote might be silenced in Ohio and Pennsylvania or Florida, and this is very important to talk about. Yet most people in Haiti still went to the polls. And I think about Haiti today. Today, our top headline, even ahead of the headline of what's happening here in New Jersey and New York as a result of Superstorm Sandy, was about what's happening in Haiti. Our top headline, Sandy destroys Haitian agriculture, threatening 1.5 million people with hunger. That's how we began today's headlines. Saying, Haiti is grappling with yet another crisis 1 week after Hurricane Sandy hit. The UN's warning Sandy destroyed 70% of Haiti's crops and left 1.5 million people dead at serious risk of hunger. The death toll stands at 54, but is expected to rise. The storm destroyed some 21,000 homes and caused more than $104 million of damage. Large parts of Haiti's south are still unreachable by land due to massive flooding, sparking fears of a new outbreak of cholera. The new devastation brought by Sandy comes as Haiti still tries to rebuild from the massive 2012 earthquake that killed some 300,000 people. Now, normally, when you have such a devastating natural phenomenon, in Haiti, it would hardly be covered in the United States. But because this same storm then struck here, and struck here hard, the worst storm in a century in the city, worse than we have ever seen in New York City. Some attention has been paid, lots of attention, not to Haiti, but to here. But what is astounding through all of this is how little discussion there is of climate change, certainly in the lead up to the hurricane. In fact, it's interesting, the group Think Progress looked at, 94 stories in the major newspapers leading up to Hurricane Sandy. Not one mention of climate change. Now, if you heard our broadcast this week, we never stopped talking about climate change. Now, I think that the dam has broken with Bloomberg Business Week and Paul Barrett's cover story saying it's global warming stupid. It may be a beginning, though I'm not sure, because just as I came here, FAIR put out alert saying there was no mention of climate change in the major Sunday talk shows yesterday. I think David Gregory had a header saying, should we be concerned about it? But then they never discussed it again. This is on Fox, this is on CBS, this is on NBC, this is on ABC. Is this possible? You know, my colleague Dennis and I, co-author of The Silence Majority, called the book The Silence Majority because I really do think that those who are concerned about war, those who are concerned about the growing inequality in this country, those who are concerned about climate change, I mean, about what has happened here on the East Coast, more than overall 150 deaths between Haiti and the United States, the raging wildfires from California to Colorado, the Dust Bowl conditions of the Midwest. Those who are concerned about the fate of the planet are not a fringe minority, not even a silent majority, but the silenced majority, silenced by the corporate media, which is why we have to take it back. I mean, my colleague Hani Massoud, video producer from Democracy Now! And I headed to Staten Island yesterday. It was truly amazing. We went over the Verrazano Bridge, which is where the runners were supposed to run. You know, Mayor Bloomberg announced there's something like 40,000 displaced New Yorkers right now as a result of the hurricane. That's about the number of people who are going to run in the marathon, 40,000 people. It's the first time the marathon was canceled, but Mayor Bloomberg didn't want to cancel. He held on to the bitter end until Friday afternoon, before saying he would cancel it. So we went where it was supposed to begin, at Fort Wadsworth. They were just beginning to dismantle it. And what ultimately forced him were the people of New York, saying, are you kidding? Generators that you have stocked up right here to keep the journalists warm. Just 50 yards, a mile down the road, you have people who are cold, who are hungry, who are without power. And you're going to hold this mass event. Mayor Bloomberg had consulted with Mayor Giuliani, and they felt it was a good symbol to New York that we could move forward. I think that's what most New Yorkers felt. We must move forward past the storm, not into this road race. And I think even many of the runners who ended up coming from all over the world felt the same way. They were just sorry they hadn't been told a few days before so they could have saved thousands of dollars coming to New York. But what was so touching, and it's always this, is the community response. In Staten Island, everywhere, church groups, Occupy, other groups had set up food and little stalls to just get people basic essentials. As through the city, they were preparing for the marathon. But they pulled out at the last minute. And you know that instead of the marathon happening, because Mayor Bloomberg had to cancel that, a number of the runners ran with backpacks, and they simply ran to give out food and cans to people along the way. I saw a group of Norwegian women, runners, who were on television. Did you see this? And they said, where are we needed? No resentment. Where are we needed? We're here to help. That is so often what isn't described, is the humanitarian response. But we need more. And I think what's been illustrated here is the remarkable lack of discussion about what has caused this superstorm that we're continuing to deal with.